Hey, hey! First, a few thank yous for sponsors, Powtoon, which we'll hear from Sven in a minute. Let's give him a round of applause. And Peer 5, without them we couldn't make this meetup and have this video coverage, so thank you. Also, if you want if you're looking for a job and stuff like that, we're connecting. We don't get commission and stuff like that. We're just hooking you up with our sponsor and stuff like that. Why not? Why not? Good question. We should. So if you're looking for a job, apply here and we'll connect you with the relevant person. And thank you for Avi Haiat, our second lecturer for the day, for investing his time. And also the content team of JavaScript Israel, which investing also their own free time to arrange this meetup. So give a hand to them also. Okay, we'll do it quick. The purpose of this group is connecting people together, getting outside of our computer. Be kind to one another. No snobby mentality, and to have fun and learn JavaScript in a fun way. This is the purpose of the group. We're looking for more speakers. So if you have an idea or if you want to come and speak, even if it's your first time, apply here in this link. You will also find this link in our website, jsisrael.com. Okay, and we are looking for sponsors. So if you want your company, if you want to, guys, for us to do more of this meetup every month, please help us and push it to your HR, okay, this link. Also, you can find it in the jsisrael.com.
Good evening, friends of JavaScript. Good evening, friends of JavaScript Israel. My name is Sven Hoffman, and I'm very happy and excited to be here with you tonight. Like you heard, I'm here because Powtoon, the company whose CTO and co-founder I am, is sponsoring this meetup. We're deeply indebted to the open source and web community. And this is a little attempt of ours to give back a little bit. My three partners and I, we started Powtoon 5 years ago with a goal to create an online animation platform. So everyone can animate, so everybody can use animation to capture their audience's attention. And since then, we were adopted very warmly in the internet. By now, we have 10 million users and 500,000 join every month. Every day, people choose Powtoon because they can't afford their message to be ignored, and we help them cut through the noise and get their audience's attention. So why JS Israel? These days, we are engaged in the most challenging engineering project so far in the 5 years of our existence. That is rewriting our Flash application in JavaScript. And we know it's not cool. 2016, still running on Flash is not great. So we're working hard to get past that part of our history. But it's a rich and difficult application. There's not many examples of stuff like that out there, so it's taken some time. With our move to leave Flash and go to the web, we had to embrace the web with all its benefits and challenges. In Flash, everything was easy, you know. People had been building apps for more than a decade. There were best practices and patterns for everything. Not many questions to be asked. With the web, anything we're dealing with, there's 1,200 different options to do this or that, and everybody has a project that is supposed to become the next de facto standard on the web, and actually knowing your options and finding making the right choices is a very difficult part of the whole enterprise. Well, so far we've chosen React as our view library and Redux to manage our application state. SVG is our vector graphics format, and we use the GreenSock animation library for timeline and twinning needs. We're working with peers at Adobe and on improving and optimizing an open source project to export Flash content to SVG and make it usable within HTML applications. For us, this is a very, very exciting journey, and I hope to meet many of you on the way and maybe collaborate on something one day together. Thanks for your attention. I wish you a nice evening, and yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about an advanced concept in Angular 2, which is the custom rendering. And one of the perfect use cases of the perfect rendering is to use Fuse. And I'm going to explain you what is Fuse. We are mostly focused on building mobile application. So my name is Avi. I'm the CTO and founder of a company called Ubiq. And you see all of my details here if you want to get in touch. At Ubiq, we develop a collaboration platform for brands and retailers so they can understand how their products are exposed in real store, so they can improve the in-store execution and field efficiency. It works with a mobile application that the store manager can use to give feedback to the brands and to show him exactly what was done and how he respects the merchandising guidelines. We started developing the application 2 years ago, and we did many changes on the mobile app. We started with Angular 1 and Ionic. Then we switched to Famous, and then Famous died, so we switched back to Angular and Ionic. And today we are developing with NG2 and Fuse and Ionic 2 in parallel. Okay. And we are recruiting, so if you are looking for a new challenge, a new job, come talk to me or send me an email, and I will explain you everything about the company and what we are doing. So when you build a mobile application, you have basically 3 choices. The first one is to go native, completely native, and then you all know the issue with that. You have to develop for the Android in Java, for iOS in Objective-C or Swift or whatever, and you have to maintain 2 different source code, 2 different teams, 2 different knowledge. It's very time-consuming. It's very expensive. It's not the perfect situation. If you want to stick to the JavaScript world, then you have 2 other options. You can go hybrid. And hybrid will work with Cordova, and Ionic is one of the possibilities. You can go React.js. It will work also with Cordova. And for those who don't know, who know what Cordova is? Okay, so it's basically a web view inside the phone that will render HTML5 and JavaScript, and you get access to some of the capabilities of the phone, so you can talk to the operating system of the phone and build a mobile application that looks like a native one for a user. And since 1 year, you have a new emerging technologies that give you the ability to write in JavaScript a completely native application. The first one were React Native with Facebook. Native Script also is doing the same thing. And Fuse is one of the competitor. It doesn't get, to my understanding, as much as noise as the other ones, but I think they have a few advantages over React Native and Native Script. And this is one of the reasons we choose Fuse to build the integration with Angular 2 because of those capabilities of this framework. So Fuse is a company that was founded about 5 years ago. So far, they have raised about 6 million. They have headquarters in Oslo and in San Francisco. And the people that started Fuse, they are coming from what is called the demo scene. If you were gamers in the late 90s and you've used Act games, you probably remember that in the beginning of the game, the hackers, they were doing a small 3D movie or animation to show off their abilities. And this is and this has led to a lot of competition in that scene. And so the people, the founder of Fuse, they are coming with that experience. So they have a very high focus on 3D animation and best rendering on the phone. So what is Fuse? Fuse works with markup and JavaScript. So you have a look here at the markup. The markup is very similar to HTML markup or any XML markup. And you see a button here, which is bounded by the text. So you have a variable somewhere that is a button text, and react on a click on a button and will launch or raise the onClick function. The binding is very similar to Angular, but you see it's only a single bracket instead of the double bracket we are used to. If we look at the JavaScript side of Fuse, they work with observable. It's a pipe. For me, my best understanding of observable, it's an endless pipe of promises. A promise resolves only once. An observable can resolve multiple times. And so you can subscribe to an observable and capture all the change that the value is going to pass through. Okay? And here, so to complement the markup, the JavaScript is defining in the export the property button text, which is defined as an observable. Okay? And the function onClick, at each click on the button, is going to change that observable value. And we will see the text that change on the button. So click 1, click 2, click 3, each time we click the button. If we look at the Fuse architecture from a bird's eye, so you have the UX markup on one side, you have the JavaScript on the other side. They communicate together based on the observable library. And you can use from the Fuse library, from the Fuse framework, a few components. So there are visual components like rectangle, circle, buttons, whatever. You have layout, so you can decide that you have a stack panel or a simple panel, dock panel, all the kind of stuff that we are used to when we build a mobile application. And then it goes through a compilation phase that we'll take the markup, the JavaScript, and we'll generate some Objective-C or C++ code. So at the end of the day, you get a native application, and you used the markup and the JavaScript to build it. So when I first look at at Fuse, it was very easy to understand, and you can go on the Fuse website to get a sense of what does it take to build a first screen or a first project. It's very easy. But if you look at the JavaScript, it's like you are in the desert, because apart from the observable, you have nothing. It's even worse than working with jQuery. So I asked myself, how can I bring Angular 2 into the game and make it my JavaScript framework that will talk to the markup. So we first started by how this should look. So what you see here is the same button component that you've seen the example with the Fuse JS, and we define an Angular 2 component which has a selector, which is going to be the markup tag that we use in the markup, and it has an input property. The input property is the API, the public API of the component, and a function onClicked that each time that is going to run is going to increment the counter. This is purely Angular 2, nothing to do with Fuse. You would write exactly the same code if you had to code the component for the web. So we look at the markup. The markup I wanted is this one. So you remember the button. Well, we are using the text property of the button, the text coming from the Fuse word, and we are binding it to the text property, to the input property for the button component. Same thing for the clicked. We're using the parenthesis syntax of ng2 to raise the event, and we got a markup that anyone that has already written an application in Angular 2 can understand, right? So how can we achieve that? Well, in Angular 2, you have what is called a renderer. And the one we are using every day is the HTML renderer. But you have the ability to take a base class of the renderer and to define your own custom rendering. How does it work? You have on the left side the application code, which is the represent what's going on in the TypeScript class of your components. And each time that the variable of that class are changing, it will raise in the renderer some extension point you can register to. So for example, you have an ng4 and the list of variable in your array change, it will go into the create element. And then you can write your own custom code in the create element, and instead of creating an HTML component, you can do whatever you want. You want to do an SVG renderer, write the SVG markup that makes the new component. Same thing for a data binding property. You will get the set attribute extension point in the renderer, and you can react to it. And so you can decide how you want to build the UI layer. And so one naive approach would be that I would write a custom renderer. You see the custom renderer, so you have to implement all of those functions. But the important one, they are the that we said the create element here, and we have a set element attribute somewhere here. These are the most important function that you have to write. And I could write the markup expected by Fuse and get a Fuse application. That would be very easy to do, but in reality it doesn't work because we want to achieve the best animation frame per second. This is the goal. And if I do the simple approach, what is going to set the speed of the rendering is going to be the JavaScript side. I will have to be in JavaScript to wait for a change in the variable to draw something new on my screen. So I will get something very, very crappy if I look at the result. So we thought again, what can we do? And the approach that we had was to build 2 trees of observable. So we will use the custom renderer of Angular to build a tree of observable on the Angular side. And on the meantime, we will use the same tree on the Fuse side. And the 2 trees, they are going to be linked together. So whenever a variable is going to change on the Angular side, it will change the variable on the Fuse side, and then Fuse will see the change and react as if the application was written with the Fuse tools. So it's a bit complex to understand the process, but here is the bird's eye of the architecture. So you have the markup of a special markup for the Angular Fuse integration, the TypeScript class for the component. They go through a compilation phase where we produce a simple UX markup for the Fuse and the observable tree that is binding on the Angular side and on the Fuse side. And then we have the Fuse library and the compiler and the Object-C and C++ renderer. So right now, you either want to kill me or kill yourself. So let's see how it works. So what we're going to build is a simple weather app application, okay, like that. And you can see a few interesting things here. You have for each, so we have 4 times of the day: the morning, the day, the evening, and the night. And we present here, based on the weather, either the moon or the sun, and you'll see the sun that is moving, and a cloud or rain or rain moving, or snowflakes. And they are moving very randomly here. So we're going to build that and see how it works. So I have scaffolded already a project. I'm using a Yeoman generator that we have written internally. It's called the generator McFly NG2. And I'm going to use that to scaffold the code. So because there is quite a bit of code involved in this example, I've already scaffolded a simple component. So you see here, this is the application. We have the bootstrap file with the ng module that Shai talked about a few minutes ago. And each component is in own folder. So you have the main component here. It's doing nothing so far. And we have the component for the cloud, which is simply an image. Okay. For the rain here, it's a more involving image because we take the image, we define a grid of 3 raindrops, we duplicate on 5 rows the raindrop, and then we animate them with a waveform. This is all a Fuse markup. You don't have to learn that. You can go on their website. You will find this example. It's exactly the same that I took here, and I didn't change a single line of code. So let's start by creating the data that we need for the weather application. So I'm going to create here, using the generator McFly ng2, a service. And I'm going to name the service weather. Okay. And by doing that, I can see here that I have a placeholder for my service that was generated. I'm going right now to import the service in the Bootstrap file. And mark it as a provider, so it will be accessible for all of our components. And then I can go into the service itself. I'm going to import HTTP. Here, I'm going to define a private constructor with an HTTP instance and use that instance to create a get method for my service that will do this HTTP get. We'll need an URL, and it's going to map the result into, let's see the result. So I use random API to create a fake API. This is the end result. So we get times of the day. We get the night, the evening, the day, and morning, and we get random value for the summary, the wind, the humidity, and the temperature. This is the URL of the service, and you'll see it begins with an array of 1 entry result, and in that array we are interested by the times property. So I'm going to grab the URL, define the constant here, and say, okay, I want the JSON of the response. I'm going to take the results first element, and this is the property I'm interested in, and I'm going to return that to the outside world. Return. Okay. And then I can go in the main component here. I can import the service. Service, weather. And I can instantiate the service into the constructor. And then code a reload function that will grab the result of the service. So we do a get. And because it's an observable, I can subscribe to the result and define here that I want to update the private property of my class called times, the public property of my class called times, with the result. So this is just simple ng2 stuff. We have a service that grabs the data from a distant remote URL, and we have injected the service into the main component of the application to get all the list of the 4 part of the day where we have some weather data. The second thing I'm going to do now is to create a component, a specific component for displaying either the moon if it's the evening or the sun if it's any other time of the day. So I'm also using the generator, and I have here the component. I'm going to call the component time of day. It's a fuse component. And the only thing I have to do in that component is very simple. I'm going to grab an image here. And this is going to be for the moon. And we're going to say, okay, my component is going to have a public input called name, which is a string. So this is the public interface of my component. And whenever ngIf, whenever the name is going to be like night, then I want to display the moon. I can do the same, the opposite test. When it's not night, I want to display the sun, right? Now I have a component. Let me close here the tags and here also. So we have a component. We need also to go back to the Bootstrap here and import that new component. And put it in the declaration. So the Todd component is going to be available to the application. And now, in the tab component that display the tab component displays the information for the weather, we're going to say that we want here to display our specific Todd component. So I will use the ng prefix here because it's a custom component I've just written in Angular. And I will say that I want to bind the ng name, which is the property of our component, to the value of contained time of day coming from the external service. We're almost there. I go back to the main component. The main component, where is it? Here. And so we have all the times, the array of times, and we're going to use here an ng4. So we're going to make a panel which has an ng4, which say let time of times and then render a specific tab, so ng tab, and bind the ng content, which is a public API of this component, to the value of time. And now that's it. We are ready to run the application, so we can do like that. Browser sync, no HTTPS. All right, and do an npm run fuse preview. And so we have the sun or the moon for the different time of the day. Okay, we have the animation for the rain. If I click again, and here we have an animation for the snow, and you have like here a native application written with ng2 and using Fuse. Any questions?
Fuse is free?
Fuse is free. It's still in beta. But I don't think they have any plan to make it not free. Yeah. It will work on Android and iOS. You can even write plugins using Java code or Objective-C code when you want to do something that the framework or you want to write your own plugin, think of Cordova plugin. So you have access to the native implementation of the either Android or iOS.
Can you say a few words how you compare them how do you compare between Views
and native script or React Native? So React Native, I really don't like because you have to write a different application for the iOS and for Android. So I don't understand why, as a JavaScript developer, I would have to duplicate my code, and if I already I'm doing this effort, maybe I will have to go back to write a native application fully. So I don't like the philosophy that we cannot reuse exactly the same code for the two platforms. It's less, for me, it's a step back compared to Cordova. Native script, they have an Angular 2 integration. If you look at the renderer of native script, they are using the naive approach. So they are rendering each element based on the JavaScript change on Angular. And so if you try to run an animation, a complex animation in native script, it's going to be very slow. So you get native component, but you don't get any animation. So compared to Cordova and Ionic, not sure it worth the effort. And so Views, I think they are in a good position. I really like the approach of Views. They're a bit silent. I mean, not many people know about them. I don't know why. So maybe they are keeping it quiet for the time of the beta to make sure that they have a nice. Maybe they are very afraid of the famous effect that killed the company. I don't know, but I think they have a very, very nice and very clean approach. Okay, thank you.